Welcome to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jesse Green, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Listen in each week as we bring you an inspiring person who will share their story, ideas and business techniques to help you create a practice and a life you love. And now introducing your host, Dr. Jesse Green.
Hello everyone, it's Jesse Green here. Welcome back to SavvyDentist.com and to the Savvy Dentist podcast, the show where great dentistry meets great business. I'm glad that you're here and I hope you enjoy this conversation today because I have got a fascinating guest for you today. Her name is Dr. Rhonda Kalasho. Rhonda is a celebrity dentist based in Hollywood and her story is one of complete and utter drive and determination. Rhonda was born in Mosul in Baghdad and left Baghdad under very difficult circumstances as a young child. She moved across to the United States with her family, where her family opened and ran various businesses. And by observing her parents in action, her whole family in action, she's taken those entrepreneurial skills and built a business empire that is expanding and growing. She's a fascinating and driven lady with a passion for dentistry and a zeal for business. She's very astute, very bright, and her business is now regarded as one of the celebrity practices where Hollywood A-listers will go to get their teeth done. So in this episode, we cover a lot of things. We talk about her background. We talk about where that drive comes from. We talk about the technology that she's bringing into her practice, which is phenomenal. She's got robots and other things going on there. It's a really interesting conversation because what it represents to me is the past, present, and the future. She talks about her background and where it's been able to take her, but she's also talking about the business that she's building right now, as well as the visions that she has for the future. I really think that this is going to be an episode that you'll get a lot of inspiration from, as well as some practical ideas, particularly in the field of marketing. There's a lot of things that Rhonda shares that are really valuable, and I promise if you listen to what she says and apply what she says, you too can experience some incredible results. So right now, let's talk to celebrity dentist Rhonda Kalasho. Rhonda Kalasho, thank you so much for taking the time to come and hang out with us on the Savvy Dentist podcast. It's 3:45 in the afternoon here, so it must be crazy o'clock over there.
Yeah, I'm a grandma. I would be asleep right now, but thank you for having me. I got my cup of coffee and I'm ready.
I'm ready too. This is going to be great. So I can't wait to talk to you because you are possibly one of the most interesting dentists that I've come across in a long period of time. And I'm really curious to talk to you about your practice, Globe Modern Dental, but I do want to talk about your backstory because in my research, you pop up a lot on the internet. I don't know if you know that, but you do. You've got an incredible story.
There's a lot of people that have my last name, Kalasho.
Yeah, but there's not too many Dr. Rhonda Kalashos who have featured in Forbes around fashion and style and all those other things. So anyway, we'll get to all of that. I wanted to touch on the fact that you are regarded as a very well-known celebrity-style dentist in California. You've obviously built an incredible practice and you've got a wonderful business. And we are obviously wanting to talk about that. But what I uncovered as I went through my research about you is you've got an incredible backstory about how you came to be in the United States, what your family went through to get to the United States. And I don't want to create a spoiler alert here by me giving it away. So I'm hoping I can just invite you to share a bit of that backstory because I think it's a really incredible story about where drive and ambition and growth comes from.
Yeah, so I actually come from a very large family. I'm one of 6 kids, and I am the only dentist. I do have a younger brother who's in med school, but all of my siblings are teachers. And so I think that, when we first came to, I am the younger of the set. I'm number 5, and then I have a younger brother. But the older siblings, they came here older, and so they had kind of They struggled a little bit with the language and trying to assimilate into the culture and all that kind of stuff. But we really learned a lot from their trajectory. My siblings, although not doctors, they're teachers, but they have really honed in on on making sure that we were always studious, me and my younger sibling, as much as possible. My older sister is a principal, and they are all very accomplished. And where we came from and where we are now is something that we're very all proud of. All 6 of us graduated with advanced degrees, master's degrees, and all that kind of stuff. But we were born in Mosul, Baghdad. And this was, and I'm not going to give away my age. I'm just kidding. But
it's younger than me. Let's just call it that, right?
So I was born in Mosul, and it was actually at the height of the war and the Gulf War. And we stayed at 92. We moved to Detroit, Michigan, from Baghdad, and we came as refugees. And so we're actually known as Chaldeans. So my background is I'm Chaldean, which is a Catholic descent or Middle Easterns of Catholic descent, and they're primarily found in Iraq and some in Iran. So we kind of got driven out a little bit after the war, and we found ourselves in Detroit, Michigan. Now, my father says we didn't stay there because it was cold. And, and so, although I do have a lot of relatives in Michigan, but I do vaguely remember that it was very cold. And we did come out we followed our church. And our church actually started in a town in San Diego known as El Cajon. And so from about 92 or 93, we started our lives out there. And my father opened a pizza place. And it's funny because we never ate pizza before. So we didn't even know what pizza was. So what had happened was, there was a restaurant that a family member said was available for purchase, and it was a great deal. And my father had 6 kids, and he did come in with some money. He did have enough to we had a house, and we all worked and everything, but he wanted to start a business and not be an employee to someone. He ended up buying a pizza place from a Greek guy that was teaching him how to make a pizza. And I remember just in awe at what is this thing? It was this giant piece of dough with all this toppings. And I remember tasting it for the first time, and I still will never forget the taste of pizza. So I don't know if I had a death row meal, I don't know why would you have that? But, so they told me what the last, it would be pizza, because that is just the most simple, basic, most delicious meal ever. But I remember tasting it and falling in love. But by my father, he worked tirelessly. We all worked there. We were in the back. I was very young, cutting up vegetables. But the thing is, we learned about the value of hard work. We learned about business. We learned about debt. We learned about what it means to be slow, like when the office is slow or when the business is slow, what that ultimately will mean for everybody there. We learned about marketing. There were so many things that you learn when you're at work and seeing the struggles of your parents who can barely learn the language. But then ultimately, over the years, you really truly see what happens when hard work is at play, and that it's fully accomplished, or it's fully realized, so that all your accomplishments are fully realized. And it was a beautiful thing to kind of grow up and witness. It was the trajectory of a refugee life becoming one where it was privileged, and that's only, I think it's like what most of people would coin as the American dream. But there is certainly truth to that there is an American dream that lies heavily on the backs of immigrants, and that trying really hard and working really hard and landing in a position where you would have never thought you could be. And then, my mother did the same thing at a deli. So she after that business, we opened up another one. We opened up a deli. And even that too, we had these giant Subway sandwiches. And I remember throwing my younger brother and I would be sword fighting with these giant pieces of bread, wondering how do people eat these things. But it was, it fed us all. It got us all through school. Like I said, every one of us, all 6 of us have advanced degrees. And we came here not knowing the language, having very little money, but being able to far exceed what we would ever dreamed. So that's my story.
It's a really interesting and fascinating story. And the reason I wanted to start with that part of your story is because obviously you've experienced what it's like to work hard. You've seen what it's like to have those dreams come true. But I also just want to go a little bit further back in time. In my research, I was reading that when you left Iraq, it was you left the house, tea on the stove and all those sorts of things, right? It wasn't a pleasant experience.
No.
So I wanted to ask what it meant for a young child to leave what they had known to come to something new, to then go through this, because obviously you've picked up so many lessons, you've articulated some of those already. But what was that separation like? I'm just curious. I know that's might not be directly relevant in some ways to where we're going with this interview and conversation, but I'm curious to ask it because I believe very strongly that the things we experience as kids stay with us.
Yeah, absolutely. How you just left your room right now, or like imagine right now, everything, it's 4 p.m. your time, honestly, grabbing just bare essentials and then leaving to an entirely different country and just leaving it all behind. And the reason why we had to do that was for political, there was reasons that had to do mostly with, it goes deeper than that in terms of my father he was told to join part of, at that point, it was a regime. It's called the Ba'ath regime, but he didn't want to join a certain political party. And then there was a fear among him and his brothers because they had experienced some, it gets really kind of dark, but what they had experienced, when you're young, you don't know that. So I remember not really understanding it fully. As I got older, I was told the complete story, but I remember that a lot of us, not only my family, but a lot of Christian refugees had to leave and leave quickly. And we had to leave in a way that it didn't spark any red flags that you're leaving. So we made doctor's appointments for the weeks in advance to make it seem that we're going to be there. We were all enlisted in school. We had our cars in the driveway. We had the TV on. We had all our clothes, my pictures. I have very few childhood photos. In fact, my husband and I got married 2 years ago. And it's funny because we play, every wedding kind of plays that little projection of like your old photos. And he has it's all him. And I have three, and I remember asking my mom, do I have any photos? And she's handing me pictures of my little brother because she's like, this is you. I'm like, it's not, it's not.
just squint your eyes a little bit and pretend it's you.
Looks like you, so that's what I think at a young age, you didn't completely understand it, but over time, I remember being sad, I wanted to go back to a doll I had and I wanted it, I didn't know where it was. And it was like little things like that, where you wanted a dress that you always loved to wear and then you don't know where it is anymore. And it's just, all of it is gone. Just imagine everything that you leaving in the morning one day, exactly as if you think you're going to come back and then not. So I think that definitely the biggest thing I think it kind of instills in you is that you're not afraid of starting with nothing.
Yeah.
And during this, I was talking to you earlier about how I have essentially now, it's at a young age, I graduated from my residency in 2016. So it's 2021 and I'm on actually my third practice. So I had my first practice, I was a partner in, and then sold my share to purchase my very own in Hollywood. And then now I have a startup in Beverly Hills. So I think that there's a fear, of course, when you're starting a new business is, am I going to be successful? Should I take on this debt? Will I be able to do this? And if you've at a young age realized you literally can leave everything you love and know behind, every single thing from the material to the intangible, that you can really restart your life or find a new or make whatever you want if you set your mind to it. You have enough energy. to redirect yourself and to recreate. So I think that that's the biggest thing that maybe that's why I took the 16 personality tests with my husband, and it came out that I was Commander. Commander was my personality, but it said that it was like, you were kind of fearless, almost like sometimes to a fault, I would say about myself, but you kind of can, you're just not afraid. You're not afraid to start over. You're not afraid to have $0 in your bank account, which I certainly had. I actually had $30 at my first start of one of my practices. And I'm one to never ask for help ever, which is kind of also a problem. But I mean, but there's so many things that came from having that kind of history or background that could benefit.
Look, it's a really rich and interesting background. And I thank you for sharing it. It's really given, I think, some context to determine or to explain part of the incredible success you're now experiencing. And so I'm always curious to ask that, because that drive comes from somewhere, and you've got a very rich history in terms of being able to cope with nothing, being able to leave those things behind, being able to observe the hard work and the entrepreneurial spirit of your mum and dad as they went through the pizza and then into the deli shops. So I think, some wonderful lessons there. And I wonder, how much you learn by observing and how much by osmosis. And I'm sure if someone was to look at the way you go about running your practices, they'd probably see bits of your mum and dad in what you do.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
which is marvelous.
Absolutely.
So I do want to talk about your practice, though, because you do have a wonderful brand and a great reputation in the Hollywood area for being the dentist to many a celebrity, many a high-profile person. And so I want to understand a little bit about how your practice has been able to establish itself as being unique and niche in its area. Obviously, the name modern is very important in your brand, in your practice, your philosophy, all that you do. So I wanted to just get a little bit of a history of the practice itself and what it is you're seeking to do with your practice that sets it apart perhaps from others.
Yeah. So my practice is not old. My practice is only 3 years. And so it's actually, I purchased it in 2018 actually. And so when it was there, it was essentially almost like a bankrupt practice. It had good hygiene, but it had no dentistry going on at all. What I liked about it was its central location. It's right on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I think when I was touring a lot of offices at that time, and I would look at several offices and just, when someone says it speaks to you, I swear my office called out my name. It really did. I felt like I was home. I walked in and there is beautiful views of Hollywood. The Hollywood sign is my office view. And it's panoramic views of all of the city. You can get downtown LA. You can also get Hollywood, but it was so bright. But I remember walking into the lobby and they had some of the chairs were held up with magazines, and the tables, it just didn't look well kept. And I had this vision. Well, look at where it's at. It has so much potential. And that time my transition consultant was saying, no, this is not a good practice. Do not buy it. But I had this feeling almost like when, maybe the same feeling maybe my mom had when she was like, let's get out of here. Let's start anew. It was kind of, I just need to start anew. I need to make this the dental vision that I wanted to create. And I went in there and I just completely started to slowly remodel, not too much because I didn't have much, in terms of, I got financed a lot, needed working capital for the first couple of months, but I slowly started to get it to where I wanted, but I knew it all starts with the team. So my team that I have currently is the same one that I had when I first started. And so we start with a skeleton team, a couple people, not many, like maybe the front office will act like the front office manager, the hiring person, and the assistant all in the same time. And then over the years, we kind of just grew on that. And then the team started to get bigger. And every time we have office meetings, I shared my vision. I shared my vision of this modern dental practice where it placed the patients first, where you delivered high quality care, but at an affordable price, that almost like when patients came in, they didn't have the smell of the office. It's like, that IRM smell, that that dental smell. Like, I want people to walk in and be like, am I at the Ritz? I instilled a lot of these little marketing tactics that I kind of picked up. I don't know if it's something. So I used to be a business major in undergrad, and then switched. Yeah. So I was actually going to be an accountant, and here I am. So,
well, thank goodness you've made that switch.
Yeah. And I actually had a amalgam filling that during an accounting final that broke in half. And I was so much pain eating an almond. So I was eating an almond. I was trying to eat healthy and study for my exam, and a crack, that thing broke. I've never felt so much pain in my entire life. And I went to my cousin, who was a dentist at the time, referred me to an endodontist who did a root canal. And I remember that night, he had a nurse call me for post-op and just see how I'm doing. And I'm like, what do you guys do? And I want to do that. Because that was amazing. Like, I felt I was in excruciating pain one minute, and the next minute I was chilling. So I was fine. So I thought, what is this? What do you guys really, witchcraft? I loved it. And so I went to my cousin and shadowed a little bit, and then I switched to molecular biology. So I actually have an accounting degree as well as a molecular biology degree.
Wow. Okay. So that's a little bit unusual. That I did not know in my research. That didn't come up. So I'm curious to ask you, do you think that's been helpful for you?
So very business is something that maybe goes over the head of a lot of people, which may know of clinicians, because clinicians are usually the science, but they use one side of their brain, which is more like mathematical and technical and scientific. But business is more of art. I think it uses the artist part of your brain, because you're really trying to problem solve, but at the same time you're very social, and you're maneuvering, and I think there's a cool like what dentist stands for, and it was like doctor, engineer, forgot what N was, and then there was like artist or something. It's like I don't even know, but it was like it was whatever. All of that, what dentist stands for, but it's art, medicine, basically coming together. And then if you can find the business aspect in that, and you're good at it, then you're gonna go far. Because dentistry is a lot of small business. It's a lot of customer service that I think a lot of doctors probably didn't think that it was going to be. So it's all customer service. So when I was reading this, actually, I used to live in an apartment that was in Los Angeles. And my neighbor was Fred Joyle.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Marketing is everything.
Yeah. So he gave me this book. And I was, at that time, he gave me his book. He said, read it. And at that time, I was an associate at a practice. And then I remember reading that, or I was actually a partner at a practice. And I remember reading that. And I was like, you know what? Where I'm at now is not my vision. It's not what I want. I mean, I love being a partner, but I want to have my own I want to use these tools. I want to buy this machine. I don't want to be told, no, it's not in budget, blah, blah, blah. So I sold my share, took that money, and then created my vision. I remember just using that book as one of my pillars. And I remember one of the things he was saying, marketing is essentially it's the smell of the office. It's that little thing. It's when you walk into a place, it doesn't smell like a dental office. You don't get the idea that you're in a dental office. And so I walked into a hotel and I realized all these hotels have scents, right? Smell. And it's the smell is whenever you smell it again, you're always like, okay, I remember that good time. I remember that time that I was in that hotel. And so my office has a scent. So it's not dental. And then the music that's in there, it's not this elevator sad, you're about to die music. It's Calvin Harris, it's Kygo, it's popping in there, it's moving. One of my friends, she came in, she's like, am I in Glowcella? It's like, so it's an environment that's lighter. As soon as you go in there, it doesn't smell like a dental office. And so we have a concierge, as soon as you walk in, it's a guy in a suit that's greeting you. It takes your temperature at the door, asks you if you would like some water. And we're not charging the Hollywood price for that. we work through membership primarily, and I am in network with 3 different insurance companies. So I think that we're fairly priced, actually super affordable compared to a lot of people that bring their invoices to us, and we're very competitive, if not affordable. But at the same time, we make you feel like a celebrity. So the celebrities are celebrities, yeah, because where we're at, we're right next to Netflix, we're right next to Warner Brothers, we're right there. Anybody can walk in and you see the same person you were watching on Netflix that night before is sitting in your chair. Luckily, I don't know anybody, thank God. I think that makes it easier. My staff usually knows them. They're like, "Do you know who that is?" And I'm squinting. I'm like, "Brad Pitt? I don't know." No idea. But I mean, I love that. But then also our patients who they almost feel they feel like celebrities when they get there. We got TVs everywhere when they're getting treatment. Our injections are painless. We've gone through a lot of training with my staff about making the injection painless. A lot of that stuff we thought about everything from the moment you come in to the end. And so that was part of my vision.
So I'd like to just talk about that for a moment, because there's a few things that are coming to mind here. I might actually reference a book that hopefully you'll find interesting as well. There's an Australian dentist, well known, Paddy Lund, and he famously cut up his old reception desk because he didn't want to have a traditional reception. He installed a coffee machine, so it had the smell of coffee, as well as installed an oven in the back office where they were baking little muffins, so it smells like a bakery. For exactly the same reasons, he wanted to create a smell that people would anchor to rather than the IRM Eugenol smell. Interestingly, on the Eugenol smell, I remember my first day going into the clinical school when I was a student, and I remember smelling that smell, and I remember thinking, I've made it. Little did I realize that later on I'd probably not want that smell.
Exactly. I strangely love that smell. Also, I don't know, the smell of bleach. It smells like a clean canal to me. So I love the smell of bleach.
Yeah, next time I'm cleaning something else, I'll just have to remember my endo days.
Smells
beautiful. I know, nothing says happiness like extirpating a pulp. But anyway, let's talk a bit about the touch points that you've created. So what I'm understanding is you've created, in your mind's eye, you've thought about the patient journey, you've looked at all the different interactions, you've looked at what experience you want that patient to have at a particular point in their patient journey. So, and then it's going, what do I want them to smell? What do I want them to hear? What do I want them to see? What do I want them to think or feel? All those sorts of things. And you've done that with conscious and deliberate intent is what I'm understanding.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So I really love that. There's a real lesson in that for anyone listening to this, and that's a process of mapping those touch points out, segmenting that journey out and going, okay, this is the first touch point, second, third, and fourth. And you can slice the experience into as fine slices as you like. But I think there's a bit of Disney in this as well, because, and you obviously down the road from Disney, pretty much. So I'm curious to ask, what influences have you had? I know Fred Joyle is an influence, but what other influences have you had as you've created this experience? Where did you get your inspiration?
Non-dental.
Yeah.
Non-dental is the best way, because when most people think of dentists, and it kind of still, even though we do all these things, it still kills my vibe when they sit down in that chair and like, I hate the dentist.
Me too. I hate it.
But just did all this, and you know what, but you can't blame them, because a lot of the times they maybe went to, so when I first came to the country, okay, so we went to, we have Medicare or Medi-Cal, kind of like they're low income type dentists. And I remember the dentist came in with a cigarette in his mouth.
Oh my God.
Yes. And then he said, you got a couple cavities. I'm going to finish this and I'm going to be right back. And I was so scared, I remember feeling that, like, almost felt like cold sensation in your tooth when you're not fully numb, that like just barbaric, and some people do have that as their history. And you can't blame them when they sit in the chair and you feel like that, but you want to turn that around. So sometimes that the dental vibe, or at least in their heads, they think they're going to see this person with their foot on their chest, pulling the tooth and all that. That's what they think. Immediately, if you remove that from their psyche and they realize they're in a safe environment where everyone's smiley and everyone's happy. So another thing is that every one of my staff members is happy. And I've made it so, not that I've convinced them you're happy, is that I make sure that they are, because they can feel it. A patient is only a foot away from you and your staff member. If you even have a little bit of angst towards one another, they're going to feel it.
Totally.
So we do a lot of staff bonding stuff, a lot of team building exercises. I make sure that my staff is well paid because I truly believe in human capital. I believe in health insurance for the staff as well. They also have gym memberships. I'm a big gym rat, and I really think that being healthy physically and mentally is important for your work life and your social life. So they all have gym memberships. And again, like I feel like I should maybe, a lot of people ask me, well, how are you not bankrupt? You're doing all this stuff. It's really just, I know my P&Ls, we are very lucrative practice, but at the same time, we are expending the energy and the resources in the right place.
Yes.
So, and then human capital is something that maybe people allocate finances to, but it's super important. And then that's what the patient feels when they walk in. And you know that, hey, when you go to a really luxurious hotel, the people, the concierge, are not getting minimum wage. They're paid well. They're actually paid very well, and they're even potentially bonused. So even structure like that, to copy it and to mimic it off maybe Fortune 500 companies. And to look at other businesses and the way that they operate beyond the dental, that you'll start to extract some great ideas and some marketing ideas that can really find to be very, very beneficial in the clinical spectrum.
It's really interesting because I love hearing you say this, because this is something when I was hands-on doing dentistry, our practice is geared quite similarly to have that concierge experience. And I've always believed, interestingly, that the rush to the bottom is never a race you want to win when it comes to marketing, but being able to position yourself as a premium offering at a fair and reasonable price where there's a good value exchange is always going to do well in business. And it seems that you're feeling a similar way about it as I do. What I wanted to ask you in all of this, and there's a few things I want to lead on to the technology in your business in a moment, because I know you've got a lot of investment in that area too, and you're very passionate about that. But what I want to ask you is, as you've gone through this journey, obviously you've done a lot of things well. Clearly, you've done a lot of things well. What I just want to ask you for a moment is, where do you think you might have made a mistake? With the benefit of hindsight, what things did you not get right?
Yeah. So when I think I should have asked more questions. Like I said, when I took that 16 personalities, I was commander. So I was always wanting to, I don't like to ask questions. I like to just take the reins and go with it. If I make a mistake, I have nobody else to blame but myself. And I'd rather that. Right. So, but the thing is, when I was purchasing, I didn't know the asset allocations, how that when you go through a purchase, that sometimes the purchase is most of the purchase is, in terms of an existing practice, is broken up into intangible and tangibles. There's appreciation. There's things that you should know in terms of the tax benefits to you as a seller or buyer. When I was purchasing, I was kind of not led in the right direction in that sense, because I didn't know much, or I didn't know what to ask. I ended up paying a lot in taxes for the purchase because of the way that it was, the purchase was broken down between intangible and tangibles, that we want in the tangible of the sale. But some things I would say was more in the business side of things.
Sure.
That's when I wish I knew a little more, or I got a little bit more help. Maybe finding a really good lawyer to help you, to read up on the purchase. It's stuff that, like parking in a building, I never really thought of. Stuff. It's something as simple as that. Your patient parking. Are you able to buy LA? You don't get parking. You have to pay for parking. So there is no free parking in LA. So the price that each of my patients have to pay for parking in a building, there's some things as little as that. I wish I honed in on a little bit better when I was doing my practice sales agreement.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, good lessons learned, hard lessons learned, but you've obviously come through it and been able
Man,
to fly.
that's probably bills is the parking. And to say, I think I was telling my husband we should own a parking lot in LA. We would be billionaires. That's
Maybe
a great.
that's the next startup. Just think of you don't need to plumb it as much. You don't have the airlines. You don't have the plant and equipment. You don't have any of that stuff.
I'm telling you that parking in LA is insane. I don't know how it is where you're at, but it's crazy. You just have to anticipate that at least $500 will go to parking tickets every month. Just count it towards your car.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, it's interesting where I live. I live in Canberra, which is 3 hours south of Sydney, thereabouts, and it's the capital. It's a small city. It's very small. So parking for us, we get irritated if we have to pay for it in the first instance. But in Sydney, which is obviously Sydney, it's a very different story. But where I live in Canberra, it's quite fine. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about your technology, because we were talking a little bit off air about the technology you've got in your practice. You've got a robot. So
yes, love her. On my Instagram today singing happy birthday to my associate.
So tell me, I will. Tell me about that.
So if I have a completely fine working iPhone, I will still buy the brand new one. I am that kind of nerd when it comes to get the gadgets and technology stuff. So I have a Temi robot, which is a medical assistant, which it's used mostly if you've ever gone to, we have big hospitals here that are chained hospitals like Kaiser or whatever. I noticed that it greeted me at the lobby, this little check-in robot. And like I said, I will take influence from anywhere. I will be influenced by anything, and no matter where it is. And I remember looking at it and I'm fiddling around. She's asking me questions. I'm just trying to figure out how she's working. And I just called the company and it's not really used for dental. Actually, the person who sold it to me said he's never even sold it to a dentist. So, or at least in the States. So that made me want to buy it even more. So
fantastic.
So I purchased this thing. It came to the office and we've been friends ever since. It's this little tiny, it reminds me of R2-D2 from Star Wars. So you can program it. You can program it to follow you. You can program it to know you and your face. You can program it to scan the office. And if you need it to deliver like a tool, maybe to a hygienist, you just pop in the location you're at and where the hygienist is, and they run it over to the hygienist. And on their backs, they have a little tray. So Temi has a little tray on the back, so we can put sometimes charts on there. Temi can get you from the lobby and bring you to a certain room. What I primarily use her for is it makes post-operative care instructions seamless. So she sits there, talks to you about what you're going to anticipate post-operative from surgery or post-operative from endo or post-operative of filling or crown or veneer. And she shows you a little video and she gives you little jokes too, which is really, it's really funny. You can program her to say all sorts of stuff. Like she'll say, I have an itch on my nose in the middle of her post-op. You get it. And then, and they like it. It lightens the situation. Again, it feels like you're not in a dentist's office. It feels like you're on the Jetsons, and so that's what I love most about that. Now, maybe it's not the most efficient thing. Sometimes it bumps into walls and sometimes it breaks things, but it creates it when someone is getting out into the room and going into the hygienist chair and a robot passes them and they're like, what was that? Like, and it's just that moment where you look at their face and you're like, that was worth it.
Yeah.
That was worth it.
I'm curious to ask, has it generated patient flow for you? I'm assuming that people would be going, my God, go to that place. They've got this robot. It's so cool.
Yeah. So like they'll put it on their Instagrams, and we have a lot of influencers, we have so many influencers that come in, they'll put it on their Instagram, and then we'll get people calling in. Hey, are you the dental office with the robot? I heard the robot does the work. And we're like, no, it doesn't. So a lot of telephone comes from that. But I mean, they hear that we are this modern dental office, or they'll say, hey, I had a friend that got a root canal and the dentist was using 3D goggles. What was that? and so I want the root canal done with that, so we have this, it's a 3D microscope through sealer, and it's called Promise Vision. And you have to wear 3D goggles when you're wearing it, and you don't need to look directly into the scope, which actually makes it a lot better, because if you look through a scope, sometimes your lashes bat in the way and you're trying to look through and you can't see anything.
Well, that's because you got lovely long eyelashes. For us middle-aged men, not such an issue. But
yeah, I have to rest my eyeballs like side that love this thing that I don't have to do that. And I just look directly at a monitor, and you can even do indirect. You can prep. I actually still have very, very enhanced loops. I love loops. I think it's great for ergonomics, but I do think that the 3D microscope is great for root canals. That's what we use. We of course have our 5D sensor with iTero, which you don't need to use radiographs to take x-rays. We still do radiographs, however, all digital, but you can run a scanner over their teeth and they can find little interproximal decay without any, and you can on pregnant women because it doesn't use any radiation. So there's stuff like that people hear, hey, I have a friend that's pregnant that has a toothache. Can she come by to come take a peek? You can take this, and we know that you don't take x-rays, use this machine. So that'll bring people over. And then of course we do 3D printing of our crowns, and we have a ceramist that hand paints them. So we really go above and beyond. And every turn of the office, you're like, hey, that's super weird. That's modern. Oh, that's cool. And so that's what we want. That's what we want to achieve.
Rhonda, that's really extraordinary. I love the fact, if I'm just drawing this whole thing into a circle. We started a little while ago talking about leaving Baghdad with nothing. You've come to Detroit, got a bit cold in Detroit. I've been to Detroit too. It's cold. It does get cold. So I'm with your dad on that. But anyway, you've now been able to put yourself through school, learning, through the family business, picking up all those lessons, observing the marketing that your mum and dad no doubt would have had to have done, taking on your own influences, having your own entrepreneurial journey of being a partner, then selling that and becoming your own boss in your own practice in Hollywood there, now with a startup as well. And I know you've got another project that you're working on outside of that as well. It's a really fascinating and interesting story. And I love the embracing of the technology as well. For someone like me, we're talking about when I graduated years and years ago, it was amalgam, and that was kind of it. And how far we've come. It's exciting to think how far we're going to go in the next 10 or 15, 20 years. I think to be a dentist at this time is a very exciting time. And I love the fact that you're at the forefront of the cutting edge of that, and you've built this incredible brand and practice and doing some wonderful things. I just want to ask you, what does the future hold for you?
I think I really want to take on Glow Modern. It's turned itself into what it's revealed is exactly what I thought it would. And I love the feedback we get from patients, from my colleagues, from my dental colleagues, and being part of that trailblazing in dentistry to create this modern entrepreneurial aspect to an otherwise monotonous field. I think I definitely want to expand, create Glow Modern of Australia, or Glow Modern of, I wish, but
Why not?
Yeah, maybe. You never know. But, that I do definitely see myself as a multi-practice owner. I struggle to find associates to have the passion as I do. And when I do, I hold on to them real tight. And it's like a baby. My practice is my baby. It's my entire world. And I struggle to find someone with the same passions, but ultimately I know I will, because I've created this entire staff that have this vision and believe in it. And they love to come to work. And I built that in only 3 years, and then turning that around for a second and hopefully a third and a fourth. I know that we'll grow the practice and hopefully make dentistry, maybe become a trailblazer in dentistry, and bringing maybe my own technologies to it, because I have some ideas myself that I would like to bring into dentistry to make some things easier or safer or whatnot. I wake up every single morning and I'm so blessed. I'm so happy to go to work. And I think there's a lot of people who can't say that. And it's a blessing. I hope that in the next couple of years, I'm doing the exact same thing and expanding on this already great brand and doing far more.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're going to be doing lots and lots of things, Rhonda. I can see that you've got a huge energy for dentistry, a huge passion for business, and obviously a rich and rewarding life yet to come, as well as what you're already experiencing now. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening. I know that it is crazy o'clock over there, and you've been so gracious with your time and so generous with your knowledge and sharing your experiences. And yeah. Well, I think, I just really appreciate it. So thank you. You're absolutely so much. Rhonda, if people want to find out more about you and where to go to read about you, to learn about you and all that you do, how would people find out about that?
They can go on to my Instagram page at Dr. Rhonda Kalasho. So it's not spelled out. So it's at Dr. Rhonda Kalasho. Ask me any questions. Feel free to ask me anything if you'd like. If you need my advice on anything, please, I'm open. And I hope to hear from your listeners. And thank you so much, Jessie. You're amazing. Thank you for taking the time out. I love it. I love listening to your show. And I can't wait to hear you on my drive to work tomorrow.
Oh, aren't you a good thing? Thank you so much for saying that. It's really lovely. And just once again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's late at night and you have been an absolute treasure and a trooper and staying up late to do this. So thank you so much. You're an absolute whiz and can't wait to catch up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jessie Green. For more free tools and resources, join the free Facebook group. Visit drjessiegreen.com/Facebook. And for more episodes, visit drjessiegreen.com/savvydentist.